Tanner Boser is in Nashville. Hopefully, you're going to be catching a country show or two before you leave town, but you're taking on Alexa Camur this Saturday. Obviously, a bit of a tougher fight to prepare for as somebody who I know watches tape, given that Alexa's been off for some time and doesn't have a whole, much of a body of work, really.
Well, he's got 3 fights in UFC and he's got 1 on Contender Series. That's enough material for me. I don't love to study hours and hours of tape. I'll go through 4 relevant fights and see what I can find there.
Yeah, in terms of him having that much time off, though, does that make it a little bit more tricky to study for a guy that's probably added a lot of tools over the years?
Oh, I assume he's gotten better, and I assume he's added tools for sure. It'd be crazy if he didn't. So I can just assume that he's a better version of what I saw. I can't prepare for things I don't know, but I just got to be ready, I guess, for everything as I always am, and just think that he's going to be sharper, better, stronger than he was.
Looking back at the last fight, were you able to take anything away from that? Obviously, he landed a perfect shot, set it up very well, but are you able to take anything away on what maybe in that situation you would do differently?
Oh, at my last fight?
Yeah, the fight against Kudalaba.
Um, well, if I could do that fight differently, I would obviously just not get hit by that punch. There's set it up nice. It was classic. He landed an overhand earlier that I blocked, and then he set it up later after he kind of erased it. He did a 1-1-2 and threw it down the pipe. I thought it was an overhand. My hand went to block the overhand. The straight came down the pipe and rocked me bad, and then he took me down, and I got TKO'd. So there's nothing I could change game plan wise. I got caught, but he hit me with a good punch. What can I do about it?
Yeah, so it was just you had projected a different punch was going to come than the one that did. Basically, that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, and that's the entire game. He won. That's what that is.
Yeah, it's very interesting to pick out these nuances because I heard you talk to James Lynch about that and just about how it's a situation where no matter what if you can go back in time, obviously you know what's coming, but in the moment, because he set that up so nicely and had kind of given you some misdirection earlier, there's nothing you can really do about it.
That's the entire game. You can't. I didn't get. I got TKO'd in like 2 minutes. It wasn't like I got owned for a whole fight and there was huge deficiencies in skills or game planning. Nothing like that. He got me, and that's just what happens sometimes. I have wins like that, and I have losses like that. That's the game we're playing. Sometimes the guy just gets you.
So is it easier to walk away from a loss like that because you know that it wasn't a situation of like a big skill deficit? It was just a singular moment.
No, they all suck. All of them are bad. You don't if you're sitting there patting yourself on the back for a certain kind of loss, like could have been worse, then you've now accepted losing. Now you're a loser. So no, it all sucks. It sucked bad. Every single loss, split decision loss that I think I won, a couple of them, they suck just as bad. It's just a different way. They all suck.
And I know that you have some gratitude for being brought back to the UFC. I think you were a little bit concerned after the last loss that maybe they wouldn't give you another opportunity. So what does it mean to you to have this opportunity?
This is the last fight on my contract. They could have cut me. They didn't. I am definitely very grateful for that I get to fight out my contract. Camur is in the exact same boat. I know that for a fact. And the winner of us will likely get a new contract, and the loser will not. So we're both back against the wall between a rock and a hard place here, and we're gonna figure it out.
I've learned a lot about you from interviewing you over these last years, and you're an interesting case because I feel like you're basically just as real as it gets. And for some reason, it took me a while to figure that out in terms of like, does this guy like me? Does this guy like doing interviews? It's just you're you. And I think that that's something I've come to really enjoy about our conversations is like you don't have much of a filter and you're not going to, say things that you don't mean.
Thanks. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I don't think I'm saying anything overly controversial here or anything too wild.
Well, no, I understand. I just always, when you answer questions a certain way, I'm like, I wonder if he thought that was just a really stupid question. And maybe you did, and I think that's okay. But that's just something that I've got to come to accept about you. But I like it about you. It took me a little bit of time to warm up to who you are. I think actually today, when I watched you do an interview with Kenny Buller, who you've known for many, many years, you talk to him the same way as you talk to a lot of other people. This guy's like a close friend of yours.
Oh yeah. Well, there you go.
So this is the Tanner Boser that people have come to know and love in your circle.
Some, yeah. Some people ask why I don't like them. You're right. It happens, but oh well.
And what's your answer to them usually?
I usually don't. I usually don't not like them. It's actually I remember. I'll give you a specific case. After a few fights ago, I think it was the OSP fight after, and Megan O'Leary interviewed me. I don't know Megan O'Leary, but she seems like a sweetheart. After she asked my brother and KB. She's like, why doesn't he like me? And they're like, oh no, that's just the way he is. I didn't think I was doing anything to indicate that I didn't like her. I don't know. I guess I just give those kind of vibes of whatever.
You're just a very blunt guy. It's just, different strokes for different folks. But it took me a little bit of time to figure it out. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on people, but you're an interesting puzzle because you're just very like, you're just very blunt and in your face and don't have much of a filter, but that's just who you are.
I guess so. Thanks.
So I mentioned you're in Nashville. Are you planning on going to any shows after your event? I know you have a love for like folk and country music.
I do like folk music a lot, and I'm definitely okay with country. All the music we've heard here walking down the street is awesome. It's definitely a place that I like being in. We have no plans. Got to see how the fight goes. You can't plan for anything after. There's no point. Before, definitely not. So it all will depend on how the fight goes, I guess.
What is it that draws you to folk music out of curiosity? I mean, you're in like a combat sport. You're from the west side of Canada, the western provinces, where it's typically very rooted in country and western music. But what exactly is it that draws you to like folk music and kind of quieter music?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's just what I like.
What was like your entry into that?
I don't even remember, to be honest. I can't think of it.
And there's nothing like in particular about the music that draws you to it?
I like the lyrics. Obviously, I like certain styles of music, like anyone else, but I do appreciate, I suppose, the lyricism and lyrical themes of folk music as a whole.
And did you listen to like folk music growing up or anything like that?
No, not really.
That's just interesting. I don't know why I find it so fascinating that you're interested in like indie rock and folk music and country. I don't know why. It's for something about I don't understand why like where you're listening to it, when you're listening to it, and what does any part of it just act as an escape for your fight career?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll listen to it after training, sometimes on the way to training. Depends how I'm feeling that day, I guess, and then depends on the artist. It depends. Folk is such a broad genre, right? Sometimes if I'm doing cardio, throw some music on, and sometimes it's folkish, and maybe it's a odd choice for people who normally want to listen to. Well, everybody's different, but hard rock and rap seems to be pretty common. Got a guy at the gym named Tony who throws on something with maracas in it every single time. Everyone's different in that regard.
I think I called one of Tony's fights. Tony Rojas, is that right?
yeah, Tony Rojas. Yeah, we give that guy the aux cord from time to time, or at least bug him too.
Well, there is a lot of good folk music from Latin America. If you're interested in getting into any of it.
Maybe. Tony doesn't listen to that though, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been a real pleasure catching up with you, and I know we're going to see each other at Unified. One of my big regrets in this business is it took me a while to start to really become dialed in with the regional scene in Canada, and I've just really enjoyed calling fights for Unified, watching fights for Unified, and going to different regional shows, it's very addictive to go to different regional events and see the up and coming talent in Canada. You know, it took me a while to get my feet wet in this business, and I really wanted to focus on the UFC, given that that's, you know, what TSN airs for the most part. But I think that becoming more in tune with the regional scene has been very valuable for me in my profession, and just seeing the journey of a lot of the different Canadians that end up in the UFC, like yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it for sure. You get to follow exactly what you said, the journeys of a lot of fighters. Kind of, you get to see the evolving story arcs of these guys, and it's kind of fun if you get to follow some of them from square one.
Is there a point in your career where you feel like it was the time where you loved mixed martial arts the most, like competing, training, everything? Is that now? Was it 10 years ago? Like, do you have a moment in time that you can pinpoint where like it really brought you a ton of joy to do everything related to the sport?
Probably early on. I don't know exactly when it would peak, but it would have been back earlier in the unified days, most likely.
And I saw in that same interview with Kenny that your very first fight, you weren't really training formally at all. Like, it was just you and some buddies in Bonnyville, where you're from, that were, I guess, kind of horsing around, for lack of a better term. So, how many fights in unified did you have before you started to really take it seriously and go to a gym and get formal training?
Well, my first pro fight, I wasn't training like at all. Uh, like you said, it was me and a couple buddies doing stupid things that we thought was training. The second fight, I had a jiu-jitsu coach, the late Jake Sampson, who moved from Calgary and was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. He helped us a lot, and he was there for me there in my second fight. And I started to do a bit more boxing with a friend of mine from Bonnyville, Mark Feger, who had his bronze gloves. And at the time, they were my coaches, and they helped me a lot. And after that fight is when I moved to St. Albert to train at Hayabusa. So from my third fight onward, I was training at like an actual professional MMA gym. My first two, I was not, but at least I trained for my second fight.
How did you get that first fight?
I messaged Sonny of Unified and asked for a fight.
And he said, "Okay, no problem." And that was that.
Yes.
How lucky were you to have won that first fight? In your looking back.
Oh my God, I was so lucky. Man, I had no business being in there at all. To win it was nuts. When I realized I could win, which was in round 3, I got mount after getting the absolute beat out of me for 2.5 rounds, like bad. I just wouldn't die. And I got on top of him by fluke. And I remember hitting him, and he was so tired from beating the shit out of me that he couldn't block. He was just completely gassed. He was a really big, really jacked, like muscle-bound guy, and his muscles were just toast. And I started hitting him with marshmallows, just dropping muffins on top of his face. And the referee was like, "You have to defend yourself, or I'm gonna stop the fight." And I was like, "Oh my God, I can win." And then I just poured the marshmallows on, and he couldn't block. He tried to buck me off one more time. I didn't lose position, and his corner were pleading with him. The ref gave like 3 warnings. He's like, "I'm gonna have to stop the fight." He's looking at his corner. He's like, "If he doesn't defend himself, I have to stop the fight. I'm sorry." The ref literally said he was sorry. And then he stopped the fight. And then I got up. I put my hands up. I went to my corner. My brother was my only cornerman, and he was trying to hold me up, and he's not that big, so I'm kind of falling. My dad was there watching, so he ran into the cage to help me up, and then I passed out, and they stretchered me to the back, and I woke up with a bunch of IVs and hooked in me, and for a second there, before I got stretchered out, I legitimately thought I was dying, and I was like, well, this is a good way to die.
That might be one of the most inspiring Homer Simpson-esque stories of success that I've heard in a long time, Tanner. And I'm glad that fight beat was your inspiration to take this on as a career, which I think speaks a lot of volumes about the kind of guy you are.
I guess so, yeah. So yes, I was lucky, very lucky to get the win there.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you in about a month's time in Calgary, and best of luck against Alexa Camur this Saturday.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aaron. Appreciate it.